Welcome into Seattle Seahawks Today. I am Tom Downey, here to break down the latest Seahawks rumors and news. Let's begin with Richard Sherman. Could a reunion happen for the Seattle Seahawks? Now, the report from The Athletic is that the Seahawks and Sherman aren't totally opposed to a potential reunion. Therefore, if you're Seattle, I would politely recommend you at least pick up the phone and call and see, hey, what's the cost? What's the role do you want? Do you want to come back? Because if you're Seattle, you have very limited money. You have to be aware of the likelihood that this offseason is probably going to be a limited one from an involvement perspective, much like last year. And you have a massive need at corner. I like Marquise Blair or even Ugo Amadi if you want to make one of them the nickel and or maybe move one to safety potentially. But you can make DJ Reed your number 2 if you want, but that leaves Trey Flowers as the other starter because Shaquille Griffin and Quentin Dunbar are both free agents. That's gross. And Richard Sherman, frankly, if you factor in the cost, could just be a straight upgrade from Shaquille Griffin. Now, this past year, these are all per Pro Football Reference, by the way. He wasn't that great. 21 to 29, 4 touchdowns, 199 yards. Missed a lot of time due to injury. Says he wants to take a 2-year deal. Plans to play for 2 more years. So, I mean, does 220 get it done? It's less than Shaquille Griffin. And if you get 2019 Richard Sherman, mind you, oh, well, all of a sudden, that dude's really good at football. That's super intriguing. Very low yards, 3 interceptions, 11 pass breakups. Sherman, unlike, say, Earl Thomas, didn't exactly ruin and burn the bridges on his way out. I would argue Earl Thomas kind of nuked them on his way out. So if they're not opposed to a reunion, I think there should be some conversation that should be had there. It's a major need for Seattle. You know Sherman's a fit because he was so great for you back in the Legion of Boom days. And frankly, compared to other guys like a Shaquille Griffin, a Patrick Peterson, a William Jackson, the younger options for the most part, Sherman might be cheaper. So if I'm Seattle, yeah, I got interest. I really do. So what would you guys do? This is your opportunity to let me know what you're thinking. Do you want to bring back Richard Sherman? If the answer is yes, well, simply type in Y for me in the comments section. If you don't want to bring back Richard Sherman, well, go ahead and scroll on down and type in N for no. Let's go to Russell Wilson now, the hot takey one, if you will. I don't think it's a lot hot takey. Anyway, ESPN's Dan Orlovsky, who's not that great, but he said the Seahawks should fire Pete Carroll if that was the difference between keeping or being forced to trade Russell Wilson. Now, again, I don't think this is an issue this year. I think maybe next year it could be a problem. And it would appear to me that Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll and others are kind of in this power struggle where Russell Wilson wants to do things his way. He wants to throw the ball more. Pete Carroll, not quite as on board with that. Now, I will make note that Pete Carroll does turn 70 this season. But even though the Tom Brady era has ruined the likelihood of winning a Super Bowl and throws off all the stats, the success that Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll have had together over this time frame has not been matched by many other quarterback head coaches. It is the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick. It's Drew Brees, Sean Payton. It's Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy / their current head coach, Matt LaFleur, and I don't know, maybe Mahomes and Andy Reid down the road. The success that duo has had is rather unmatched. Now, unfortunately, you haven't had the success of 2014, 2013 since then. And I think both parties want to find that success again. Pete Carroll went up having an elite defense and a ground control offense and a ground game that was successful and more of a game-managing version of Wilson at quarterback. The recent success has been to Wilson stepping up and becoming a better player. So I understand the issues between the two sides. I think there needs to be some relationship mending, some therapy, if you will, for both guys. But if you had to pick one, guys, I think you should probably keep Russell Wilson. Pete Carroll's 70. Who's more likely in 5 or 6 years to still be in the NFL? 76-year-old Pete Carroll, 75-year-old Pete Carroll, or Russ? I'd actually go Russ. So get your votes in. This will be the, I'm sure, controversial pinned comment on today's video. Type RW for you'd rather keep Russ, or type PC for Pete Carroll. Let's go to Jurrell Casey. Could the Seahawks sign him? Suggested by fans right after Casey, of course, was cut by producer Sam's Broncos earlier this week, or last week, I should say. He would help at the defensive tackle spot. Now, you're not adding him based on what he did in 2020 because, well, he was hurt and only played 3 games and had 14 tackles as a result, and he's on the wrong side of 30. But all of those things might actually make it more likely that he ends up in Seattle. The last time we saw him play, 2019 for the Titans, by the way, 5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, was even better back in 2018. He's on the wrong side of 30. In reality, he's no longer an ascending player, probably more of a descending player if we're keeping things 100 here. But if you're Seattle and maybe you were to trade away Jarrell Reed, save some money, and spend that on the offensive line, bringing in Casey, who would not impact your comp pick formula, by the way, actually kind of intriguing. What if you brought him in on a 1-year, $4 million deal, somewhere in that range? That actually could work. And at worst case, it could be some great depth for you if you were to keep Jarrell Reed. So I think there will be interest in Casey, and I think given Seattle's lack of cap space, for now at least, actually could be a fit from a money perspective. Speaking of money, if y'all want to get some and earn some betting on sports, do it with our sportsbook partner, BetUS. The link, you see it below, bottom of your screen. It's chatsports.com/bet. Don't forget, by the way, to use the promo code that you see right there. It is Seahawks125. When you use that URL, when you use that promo code, it will get you a 125% deposit bonus. So go sign up and place some bets today at chatsports.com/bet. Let's go to Carlos Dunlap again because that is a key area of focus, potential issue, whatever phrase you want to use there for Seattle. Now, the Sports Illustrated Maven Fan Nation, whatever blog it is these days, suggested trading him and said 40% chance he gets traded. I think they added an unnecessary 0 there. I don't think Dunlap gets traded. What I think ends up happening is step 1, Seattle releases Carlos Dunlap to save over $14 million on his very expensive base salary for an aging defensive end, with no flexibility in terms of the structure of that deal because it's just got 1 year left. Then Seattle tries to bring him back at a cheaper price. If you could trade him, okay, sure. I think the market, though, is going to dictate less than $14 million. J.J. Watt went for $15.5. I think Dunlap gets less than that price, significantly less. Maybe it's like a $10 million a year deal. I do want to keep him, though. Don't get me wrong on that. I look at this defense, and I watch the difference in play up front, and as a result, some play in the back end, with Carlos Dunlap versus without Carlos Dunlap. He became the team's best defensive lineman, and I'd argue a top 3 player once he was acquired as part of that deadline deal with the Cincinnati Bengals. So I would love to find a way to bring him back, but it can't really be at his $14+ million cap hit for this upcoming season. So get your votes in. What do you want to do with Carlos Dunlap? If you want to cut him, type in C for cut. You got to go find somebody else, though. If you would rather keep him, simply type in K for keep. Let's talk draft now for the Seahawks. Couple prospects who are going to be meeting with Seattle per Justin Mello of the Draft Network, or already have, of course. 3 names: Anthony Schwartz, Trill Williams, and Greg Newsome. We'll discuss each guy here, beginning with Anthony Schwartz, who I think is going to be the fastest player in this year's draft and has a legit argument for being the fastest guy in the NFL. Despite that, he's never been that good of a football player. Like, he doesn't really know how to be a receiver. He's still a little bit too much of a track guy playing football. When he has the ball, he's really fast. But getting him of the ball is a problem, A, because Bo Nix is bad, but also because he just wasn't much more than a gadget player for much of his career. And oddly enough, wasn't a return guy either. So the speed is tantalizing. The player right now is just not there yet. Let's go to Trill Williams, part of the long and lanky duo of cornerbacks at Syracuse. Awesome name, by the way. Production was whatever this year, part of a very good Syracuse secondary when healthy. Fits the mold for Seattle. Maybe day 3 could be a cornerback target to keep an eye on. Finally, there was Greg Newsome, the best player on this threesome list here. If he's there in round 2 for Seattle, I would strongly advise picking him. But you know what? After playing in a limited sample size of games this year because of some injuries and Big Ten not playing that many games to begin with, Newsome had a great year for Northwestern. He did not get beat hardly at all this year. I think he's off the board before round 2. But those were 3 guys to keep an eye out for as it relates to the NFL Draft and recent meetings or soon-to-be meeting for the Seahawks for the 2021 NFL Draft cycle.